Welcome back to my channel. I'm Hannah Blackwell, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a collaboration between myself and Kaylee from Kaylee's Books, and we're going to be sharing with you our favorite dark romance reads. Excited for this collaboration. I have been friends with Kaylee for a few months now and got to know her, and we do have a lot of similar taste, and we wanted to do a collaboration, especially like a romance collaboration. We both enjoy reading dark romance books. If you do not follow Kaylee already, I totally encourage you to go check her out. She has some amazing content and she's really the sweetest person. Her channel, Kaylee's Books, will be linked down below. She'll be sharing and uploading about the same time, I believe, her dark romance recommendations. So after you finish this video, after you give it a like and a comment letting me know your favorite dark romance reads, make sure you pop on over to Kaylee's Books to watch her recommendations as well, because she's read a lot of really awesome books that she's going to be sharing with you there. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would love to have you subscribe. It helps my channel grow. If you click the notification bell, you can be notified every time I post new videos. All of my social media will be linked down below in the description so that you can follow me on Goodreads, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the video. I'm going to go ahead and be starting off with a book that is not necessarily like an all-time favorite for me. It was just like a fun ride. But I think it is a really wonderful book for people who have not read any dark romance before and they want to just kind of like try it out a little bit. And that's going to be Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is the first book in one of her many mafia romance series. And this one follows an enemies to lovers mafia romance story where our main character is in the Italian mafia in Chicago. And she gets sucked into an arranged marriage with our hero, who is in the Irish mafia. And the two of them don't get off to a very good start. They definitely hate each other a lot. And this has a lot of like pranks, basically. And like, I feel like I liken this book to like a dark romance on the CW. I don't know if it's even called the CW anymore, but you know, the channel that had like all the like kind of teen dramas on like back in the 2000s, Gossip Girl and like Vampire Diaries and all that kind of stuff. I felt like this book was kind of like that, but I also think that it was a super fun time. And because it never got super dark, there wasn't really like much of a dark plot in it either, I felt like but it did kind of dip your toes into some dark elements that are in dark romance. We have characters doing things that are not necessarily legal, and the circumstances themselves are a little bit dark. There was a forced marriage. I really had a fun time with this. It's not an all-time favorite because I like very dark romances, but like I said, this is a perfect intro to dark romance for someone that just wants to try out dark romance for the first time. The next book on my list is the Mind F series by St. Abbey. I can't remember the name of the first book in the series, but it'll be popped up here so you can see. I have read the first 3 books in the series, and I'm hoping to be picking up the 4th one very soon. And I know once I pick up the 4th one, I'll probably go straight to the 5th afterwards. But this is a series of 5 romance novellas that are very similar to Criminal Minds, if you ever watched that show, because we do have our heroine who is a serial killer. She falls for an FBI investigator, specifically the investigator who is looking into her case and trying to figure out who she is while she's going on this killing spree. Now, the killing spree is for good reason. You eventually find out like everything that happens to her and why she is going to the lengths that she is. This is quite dark when we get into the things that our heroine is doing to these people. Definitely very dark, but the romance itself is not super dark. So I feel like this is a good like once you've read Brutal Prince, you can like maybe try out the Mind F series before you go on to darker things. But this does give you much darker vibes because we do have this main character who is this violent vigilante basically, and it's really fun. I feel like it's like 60% thriller, 40% romance. I don't think the romance is quite in the forefront in the series, but man, is it a fun time to read. It's a really fun series, so I definitely recommend you checking it out, and I cannot wait to read the 4th and 5th book in the series so I can let you know my final thoughts on it. The next book in my recommendations is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. This is a historical dark romance, and I don't think you find a lot of those unless you're kind of looking into like the old school bodice ripper type of stories. But this is not an older historical romance. This was written more recently. And this is about a girl who meets a boy when they are being like fostered, I believe, and the boy is being mistreated by these nuns. And then something really devastating happens to the girl and the boy helps her out. From there, you fast forward to modern day, and our heroine is an older heroine, actually. I think she's in her late 20s, maybe 27, 28, something like that. And she is working for the courthouse, and she is working under the guise of being a widow. And this famous highwayman is captured and put in jail, and he quickly escapes and takes her with him. He takes her captive. And this is the romance between the two of these characters, the highwayman and our heroine. This is a gorgeous love story that is really sweet, but definitely dark because of the things that have happened to both of these characters in their past. They've both been through some really dark things, and especially with our hero, that does alter his way of treating people, and especially how he treats the heroine. And so there's definitely a lot of dark elements in here in their relationship, and in how like the steam plays out in this book as well. Not to mention that we do have a captor-captive situation, and our hero being a criminal or a highwayman who is doing things that are not quite ethical. I loved this book, and I cannot wait to continue on in this series. I think there needs to be more dark historical romances because I just absolutely adored this one. Next, I want to talk about a completely different book. Yet again, I feel like I'm like hopping all over the spectrum here, but I think that's good because I do want to give you guys a good idea of some different ways you can take your search of dark romance. And so this is going to be a dark contemporary romance that takes place surrounding this very wealthy company, this very wealthy family. And there are like rich people politics going on, and we have our main character who, her sister is promised to a really powerful business family in their area, but she basically ruins herself, and our heroine, our main character, ends up having to take her place to marry into this family. And in doing so, she basically has to promise to take part in this initiation that she really doesn't know much about. Every aspect of her life is now being controlled, and the steam in here is flippin' hot. It is super steamy, and I actually just recently downloaded the second book in this series. It's a 3-book series, and I believe these are novellas technically. I think they're like in the 150 page range, possibly. These are kind of like the what happens behind closed doors in super wealthy business families, like the super rich elite royalty basically of America. And they do some pretty dirty things, let's just say. I definitely loved this one and can't wait to continue on. But definitely, just like all of the other books in this recommendations video, make sure you check trigger warnings, and there's a lot of triggers in the initiation for sure. Another book that is filled with triggers and probably the most triggers on this list, and that is Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. This is a paranormal romance. I've heard some people describe it as a fantasy romance, and I've heard others even describe it as a monster romance because we're dealing with a demon. So that's kind of like toes the line between a few different genres, right? I would consider this a paranormal romance because we have this cult, we have witches, we have the demons, and we're talking about hell. And so that's just how I categorize this story, but the other categorizations make sense too. This was one of my favorite romance books so far this year, and this is actually the perfect time of year to be reading this because this has the Halloween, the spooky vibes. If there's ever a dark romance to give you Halloween vibes, this is the one. This takes place in the Pacific Northwest, so it is rainy, it is dreary. I'm pretty sure it takes place in fall. And we're dealing with a cult and witches and scary monsters chasing after our main character. This cult is basically trying to sacrifice. And then we have our hero who is actually a demon who is being enslaved by the cult and ends up helping our heroine out, and the romances between the two of them. This book had all of the fall, spooky, and Halloween vibes, and if you haven't picked this up already, now is definitely the time of year to do so. The rest of the books I'm going to be talking about are all going to be like crime family / mafia romances. Next I have Mafia Mistress and its whole series really that are out so far. I've read all 3 books. There's a 4th book coming out, and I think that one is going to be a male-male relationship, and I cannot wait to hear that story because of who the character is that it's going to be following. But the first book in the series follows our heroine who is living in Canada, and her dad is the head of like local mafia, and he has ties to the Italian mafia. And basically it turns out that he's done some things that are not so great, maybe lost some money for a super powerful man, and he has to promise off his daughter to him to pay his debts. And so he does so, and our main character is not happy about it. And she's basically taken captive by this guy and promised to his son. The only thing is, though, that he decides he wants her for himself. So she's promised to his son, but the romance is actually between his dad and her. And it is hot. There is a lot of dubious consent in here and super, super steamy play. Our main hero, like our hero in this book, is not a good guy. He's not a nice guy, and he doesn't really end up doing that much apologizing for it either. So if that's not something that you're into, you might not like this one. We don't have a main hero that is technically super likable. He is all for completely dominating our heroine and controlling everything that she does. And I flippin' adored this whole series. Every book in this series, I believe, got 5 stars. The 3rd one may have gotten like a 4.5. I'm not sure. It's the least favorite that I have, but I still adored it. The first 2 books in the series follow one couple, then the 3rd book follows another couple. So you get your HEA for this couple at the end of the 2nd book. The series goes on to follow other couples. I absolutely adored this, and it is 100% my kind of mafia romance. I love a dominating hero. I love a dominating, controlling hero in my books. And yeah, Fausto, that's the hero in this book, he's hot. Speaking of a dominating hero, I'm talking next to you about The Sweetest Oblivion. This is by Danielle Laurie. I think that there is some controversy surrounding this author on Twitter. Obviously, as a reader, just read up on what you want to in terms of the authors that you read from. I absolutely adored this book. This follows our super dominant hero, and then we have our heroine who's super sweet, super perfect daughter of this mafia, of one of the 5 mafia families in New York. And her sister is promised to the head of one of the other families. Except for she doesn't really want to marry him, and basically our heroine has super amazing chemistry with this guy. So the two of them start to hit it off and start to develop a forbidden type of romance. And it gets super steamy, super hot. It's slow burn and just like chef's kiss, super hot. We have a lot of action and drama, and overall a very entertaining read. I still want to read the third book in this series. Each book in the series follows a different couple. Finally, the last book I have on my list is Desperate Measures by Katie Robert. And I have read the first 3 books in this series, and I think there's 6 total. And the series is called her Wicked Villains series. It's called the Wicked Villains series. And each book in this series follows a different Disney villain and Disney princess romance. And the first one, Desperate Measures, follows Jasmine and Jafar. And the kinks in this book include dubious consent, CNC, consent, non-consent, and like voyeurism as well. And this book kind of goes straight in, like a lot of Katie Roberts' books, it goes straight in for the steam. There is no slow burn. So we have Jasmine, who's the daughter of a like crime lord who controls a section of the city. And Jafar works for him, but very immediately in the book, Jafar murders Jasmine's father, and takes control of his crime organization. And then he basically takes Jasmine captive. But it's technically really by her consent, but because we do have dubious consent and consent, non-consent, they do toe that line quite often throughout this book. And a lot of things that happen in the series take place at Hades, like adult sex club. And so there's a lot of things happening there in this book and throughout the rest of the series. But this book, even though it is Disney retellings, it is not a fantasy romance series. This is a modern day, like contemporary, like dark romance series, almost like a mafia romance. But yeah, I really, really love this book. This is one of my all-time favorite dark romances. I just thought it was basically sheer perfection. I think I've read it twice already, and I'm sure I'll read it a third time. I really need to get the hardcover because Katie Robert just came out with new hardcovers for this series that are flipping gorgeous. So those are all of my dark romance recommendations. I hope that I was able to offer you up a few different ideas of books that you should pick up or may want to look into. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and comment below and let me know what your favorite dark romance is. Make sure to head on over to Kaylee's channel, which is linked down below, and watch her video, subscribe to her content because she has got a lot of great videos on her channel. If you haven't already subscribed to me, please go ahead and click the subscribe button. Click the notification bell if you want to be notified every time I post new videos. All of my social media is linked down below, including my Goodreads, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Until next time, fellow readers, keep reading and living your best life. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.